A lot of people were baffled by this, especially people who don't live in the UK. I saw on Twitter other Europeans looking at it and going, my God, what is happening in Britain? Was Ubisoft right when they released the game Watch Dogs that describes the descending of fascismus over Britain after Brexit? Well, I'm sad to say that this is actually the case in Europe as well. Many countries actually do require you to have a license for the birds you're having. The thing is, most people don't live in rural areas and they don't care or they don't know. But this is the trend of the European Union as a whole moving forward. This is how society progresses. And it seems that the trend is for the government to abolish any type of semblance of privacy. Like, you do not have your own backyard anymore where you can do and grow whatever you want. Like, everything you do as a citizen influence others. And if it influences others, then the government needs to regulate it. So how exactly do they regulate it? Well, in the case of the UK, if you have chickens, you need to register it with the government. So in order to keep birds, you gotta file a form and you gotta say how many birds you have. I guess it needs to be fewer than 50. You need to describe the race of the birds, the environment you keep. You gotta make like an entire study to show that it's feasible. And then you submit it to the government. Now, the question is like, what is the problem with this? Well, think about the army of bureaucrats that are paid from the taxpayer money in order to keep the system running. Think about the possibility for corruption. I mean, this happened in communism all the time. Like, let's say you want to keep birds, but you do not have the correct space to keep them, or you do not have the exact species required, or whatever, you know? What do? Well, you bribe the official. That's what you do. You bribe the official. You tell him, look, I'm giving you some money. Just look the other way, right? I don't actually have 55 birds. I have 49. Can you write that in? Why, thank you. Right? So you now have like an army of people that aren't producing wealth. They're not generating wealth, but they are sucking wealth from the economy. In order to have like that person sitting at a desk and signing those documents and the papers and the grifters that do the studies to make sure that the birds are fine and whatever, they require to be paid, and often they are paid very well. Like, in fact, most of the time, the person keeping the birds is making less money than the person grifting it in order to make sure that the documents are signed in order and to fact check everything, right? So this is like one of the issues. Another issue that they're talking about here is the damage that the net zero policies are doing to the elderly. So one of the things that Keir Starmer government is doing, according to this article, is to cut off the help that the government used to give for people in the winter. So in Britain, it's not so bad, but in Eastern Europe, it's really bad. Like, the winters here are absolutely devastating. And this is something that the European Union is doing as well, right? Like, they're very concerned with how people are heating their homes. The problem is, like, if you live in a city, right? If you live in a apartment building, winters aren't really that bad because you get the heating from your neighbors. Like, the guy that lives on top of you, he's heating his apartment. The guy that lives below you, he's heating his apartment. And you know, you can get away with just not having the correct temperature, just like lowering the heater a little bit. But if you live in the woods, if you live in the rural area, if you live in the middle of the fucking mountains, my fucking God, it's so horrible. So horrible. And it is actually devastating. Like, if the European Union tries to pass legislation, I saw that they were flirting with the idea to cut down on biomass. Biomass is what they call wood, right? So, like, heating your house with the wood. Many people that live in rural areas, they have wood stoves. They do not have any other way of heating their house. So if you're making it more expensive to them, because, oh, the pollution, the carbon dioxide from burning the wood, what are they supposed to do? What other thing are you giving them? Even if you were to give them money, like, what can they do? They're in the middle of the mountains in a rural area, right? So there's a lot of people like that. Now, what's interesting is that while they're doing this, while they're cutting off the money that goes for the elderly for heating their homes and stuff, they're giving more money to hospitals, right? Because, again, this is the thing that they love. It's to only care about their voting base. Like, they don't care about reaching to other, because they know, like, the elderly, they vote Tory. So, let's give money to, like, train drivers and other shit, you know, that vote Labor. But, like, here's the interesting thing. They never point out that if you're about global warming and net zero, hospitals pollute. Hospitals pollute a lot. Like, do you know how much electricity is needed in order to operate a hospital? So let me understand if I get the mentality. You don't want the old lady to heat her house properly because it's polluting. So instead, the old lady should get sick so that then she goes to the hospital and she pollutes over there. Wouldn't it be simple and cheaper if you just allow people to heat their homes so that they don't go to the hospital? Because the cold is like one of the things that has a good track record of getting people sick. Because when it's cold, your immune system goes down. And then it's also this nonsense with the bird flu, right? It's like, oh, you need to register all this shit because we need to stop bird flu. How the fuck was bird flu stopped for 2,000 years without government intervention? Like, I'm not saying there's not a possibility for bird flu to happening, but come on, like, there must be something where you can say, yeah, this is ridiculous, this is absurd. Like, even if it stops the thing, it's not worth doing. If you want maximum safety, go to a maximum security prison. You get fed, you get free healthcare. If it's maximum security, no one comes into your cell, so you're safe. You get free clothing, you get free everything. It's like a socialist dream. I honestly don't understand why communists don't advocate for maximum security prisons a lot more. And you get to sign a lot of paperwork. You get to file a lot of paperwork as well. Yeah, so basically this journalist says that Donald Trump says that Keir Starmer is a very nice and popular. It's like, you need to understand, Donald Trump is still a politician at the end of the day. He was president for the US for more than 4 years. A lot of people like to forget that. But if he gets reelected, he's going to have to deal with other world leaders. So this is something that's called diplomacy. Like, you don't want to start off on the wrong foot. Like, you want to be nice to the person. Because at the end of the day, Donald Trump doesn't live in the UK. And even if he did, he probably doesn't care about heating his house for the winter. Now, what's also interesting is that some journalists actually pressured Keir Starmer about the wage that some of the government employees are doing. And he snapped at the journalist saying, I don't believe my staff should be the subject of political debate like this. In other words, once you give your taxpayer money, shut the fuck up. Just pay your taxes and shut the fuck up. This is the socialist mindset everywhere around the world. They don't want to talk about the spending, right? If there's a hole in the government budget, they never address the spending. They always address, oh, we're not collecting enough taxes. There's people that, you know, they're finding loopholes in order not to pay the taxes. How can we crack down on them? How can we add more taxes? But the spending, that one never gets to be questioned, you know? Like, we never get to ask, like, okay, so how many people are you going to hire to make sure that all of the paperwork is filed, to make sure that every single household doesn't have more than 50 chickens or whatever the fuck? How much money is that going to cost? They never talk about that, you know? But anyway, let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.